Good morning. Today is July 17th, and you're listening to the greatest love story taken from Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 3, where God said, I have loved thee with an everlasting love. If you have members within your household, please invite them to join with us this morning, and we would like to have as many listeners as we possibly can. And also going forward, if you would be so kind as to encourage others to join with us, I would greatly appreciate it. And while you're doing this, I will be giving some updates. Next Sunday, we're going to pick up where we left off with Abraham, Sarah, and their nephew Lot. And then the following week, we're going to begin the personal ministry of Jesus Christ. We've already given an overview, but that particular Sunday, we're going to start with Matthew, the 5th chapter, where we have the Sermon on the Mount. And so I hope that you'll be inviting others to join with us. And then going forward, we're going to have programs such as the Sweet Holy Spirit. And I have a lot of scriptures that are floating around in my mind and most importantly in my heart. And it's something that is going to astonish and astound you concerning the sweet Holy Spirit and the work of the Holy Spirit. And then we're also going to have a lesson about angels, and I'll be answering the question, do we have angels walking among us today, and do we have guardian angels? And so I'm looking forward to those programs, but also we're going to be talking about heaven, and we're going to be talking about hell. Now, I want to ask you this. When was the last time that you heard your preacher speak on the subject of the devil and also speak on the subject of hell? And now we're to speak the truth in love, but we're not to sugarcoat things. And there is a heaven and there is a hell. And so we need to be ready for all things and to use our abilities and talents in the service of the living God. And as I mentioned last week, today's lesson is going to be about challenging you to use your abilities and talents in the service of the living God. And we always love a great challenge. And so that is the purpose of the lesson today. Now, there are two people that we want to speak of in the New Testament concerning their abilities and talents. One is Moses, and then the other is Saul of Tarsus, later on known as the Apostle Paul. And so we're looking forward to today's lesson and what we may learn from it and grow and use our abilities and talents. Now, when it comes to Moses, as he was going to lead the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt, God was speaking with him, and Moses was a little bit reluctant. And so God asked him, he said, what is that is in thy hand? And so Moses said, it is a rod. And so God instructed him to cast it on the ground. And when he did so, it became a serpent. Now this scared Moses, and he kind of fled a little bit. But then God told him to take it by the tail. And so Moses did so, and it became a rod again. And so then God instructed him to take his hand and to put it into his bosom. And so he did so, and when he pulled it out, it was leprous and white as snow. And then when he put his hand back into his bosom and pulled it out, the flesh was just as the other hand. It was made whole once again. And so then God was trying to get Moses to speak to the children of Israel and to encourage them, and also to Pharaoh to lead the children of Israel out of the land of Egyptian bondage. But still Moses was reluctant, and this angered the living God. And so he did allow him to use Aaron as his spokesperson, as Moses had indicated, I am slow of speech and of a slow tongue. Now, one of the lessons that we need to learn is that God is not going to ask you to do something, but what he is going to give you the ability and the talent to carry those things out. And so then God, when he allowed him to use Aaron as his spokesperson, what I find rather interesting is that God instructed him to use his mouth to speak into the mouth of Aaron, and he would do likewise. And so it was amazing to me that Moses would still be using the talent that God would give to him. And so we need to be able to find it within us to have the courage and the ability to believe in the living God and to use the abilities and the talents that He has given to us. Now, one of the things that I find rather interesting is in Matthew, the 25th chapter, where Jesus Christ spoke of 10 virgins as they were waiting for a marriage feast, and they had lanterns. 5 of them went ahead and they burned their oil, and then the 5 wise virgins held on to what they had. And so then when the bridegroom cometh, they had oil for their lamps. And so then the foolish virgins tried to get the wise virgins to share with them, but they said, we would not have enough. And so the foolish virgins were shut out of the feast. And so the lesson was learned that we need to be prepared. And then he goes further, Jesus does, in talking about the Lord of servants as he was going to go away into a far land, and he gave talents to 3 different men. One he gave 5 talents, the other 2 talents, and then one man, the third man, 1 talent. And so the man that had 5 talents, he doubled the talents. And then the man that had 2 talents, he doubled his talents. And the one that had the 1 talent dug in the earth, and he hid that talent. And so then when the Lord of the servant cometh, he spoke to the man that had 5 talents, and he presented it to him, and he said, I've gained 5 other talents. And so the Lord of that servant said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. And so then the man that had the 2 talents, likewise, he presented to the Lord, and he said that you gave me 2 talents, and I have gained 2 more talents. And so then the Lord of that servant said, well done, thou good and faithful servant. Thou hast been faithful over a few things. I will make thee ruler over many things. And so then the third man that had the 1 talent, he presented that 1 talent to God, and he indicated that he had dug in the earth and that he had hid that talent, and lo, here's that 1 talent that thou gavest to me. And so he was condemned because he had not used that 1 talent. And the Lord of that servant said, cast ye the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. And so the strong lesson is that we need to use our abilities and talents in the service of the living God, and that we will be able to lead others to Jesus Christ. There's a song that I used to lead many years ago, and it was titled, There is Room in the Kingdom. And down in the chorus it says, there's work that we all can do. And so we do need to be strong and faithful and using those abilities and those talents in the service of the living God. And so then we also have the example of Saul of Tarsus. Now, Saul of Tarsus went to the high priest, and he got letters that he would be able to go into the synagogues in Damascus and to bring Christians back bound. And so he had the letters, and on his way to Damascus, shortly before he got there, there was a light that shone round about, and it blinded him, and he fell to the earth. And then he cried out to the Lord. And so then Jesus Christ, in answering Saul of Tarsus about, who art thou, Lord? He said, I am Jesus whom thou persecutest, and it is hard for thee to kick against the pricks. And so then Saul of Tarsus wanted to know what Jesus wanted him to do. And so he was instructed to go into Damascus, and it would be told him what to do. And so those that were with Saul of Tarsus as he was blinded by the light, and he did not eat nor drink for 3 days. He was blinded by the light, but those that were with him led him by the hand into Damascus. And so then Jesus appeared to Ananias, and he spoke concerning Saul of Tarsus, and instructed that he go to him and that he preach unto him. And Ananias was a little bit reluctant, but Jesus indicated that he is a chosen vessel unto me. And so I will show him great things, how that he must suffer for my name's sake. And so one of the things that we need to learn is that Saul of Tarsus, even though that he had been mean and wicked and wanting to bring Christians bound back to Jerusalem, Jesus looked at him and he found something, and he said that he is a chosen vessel unto me. And so then I will show him how great things that he must suffer for my name's sake. And so as Ananias went to Saul of Tarsus, he preached to him the truth. And so Saul was baptized, and he began preaching in the synagogues that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. And so then we learned many things, how that originally there were those Christians that were reluctant, they were afraid of him. And so it took a little bit of getting used to that he had actually learned the truth, and that now that he was preaching that Jesus Christ is the Son of the living God. And then also we need to remember that the Apostle Paul, as he was later known as, wrote about half of the New Testament, and he suffered many things for Jesus Christ. And so that is among the lessons that we need to learn, is that as we use our abilities and talents, that does not mean that everything is going to go smoothly, but rather we're going to make enemies. It may even be within our own household. And Jesus spoke about that, how that mothers and fathers and husbands and wives may be at odds with each other, but we're to be strong and faithful in the service of the living God. And so then Saul of Tarsus, later known as Paul, he spoke that how that I have a desire to depart to be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to abide in the flesh is more needful for you. And so Paul wanted to go to be with the Lord, but he realized that it was in the interest of those on this earth that he stay behind and use the abilities and talents that God gave to him. And so then he used an analogy in 2 Corinthians, the 4th chapter, how that we are to be as those that are in sports, that we run a race, and we all run, but one receiveth the prize. So run that ye may obtain. And then he said, I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means I myself should be a castaway. And so then we take an inward look at ourselves and realize what Jesus said in Matthew, the 5th chapter, and verses 14 through 16. He indicated, ye are the light of the world. A city that is set on an hill cannot be hid. Neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and it giveth light unto all that are in the house. Let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works, and glorify your Father which is in heaven. And then Jesus also indicated in John the 8th chapter and verse 12, I am the light of the world. He that followeth me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. And so we learn that we are the light of the world, but that light is the light that is emanating from Jesus Christ. And so we're to let our light so shine before men that they may see our good works and glorify our Father which is in heaven. Now, the Apostle Paul, as he indicated, that I have a desire to depart to be with Christ, which is far better. Nevertheless, to abide in the flesh is more needful for you. He later on goes on to write, as he ended his life, or as his life came to an end, better worded, he indicated that, for I am now ready to be offered, and the time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day, and not to me only, but unto all them also that love his appearing. And so we need to be like the Apostle Paul, that we dedicate our lives to Jesus Christ, and that would lead others to him, and so that when the twilight of our lives comes to an end, that we may say the same words of the Apostle Paul. And so we need to be faithful, and the challenge to you today is to use your abilities and talents in the service of the living God, to take an inward look within yourselves, to find out your abilities, your talents, and how that you may use those things in his service. And we may also get very creative on how that we use those abilities and talents. It may be something that is a little bit unorthodox, but something that is very effective to bring people to Jesus Christ. And so it is very important and vital that we do that. And I challenge you this day to do just that, to look inward and to search yourselves for those abilities and talents and what you have to offer to the living God, and to give your very best to him. Now, this past week, I read on social media something that has stuck with me throughout the week, and I cannot get it out of my mind, or do I want to, because it's something that is very important. And if you have a pen and paper, please write this down. It indicated, "Dear God, I'm in your hands. I know you will not drop me." And so that is something that shows the childlike faith that we should have in Jesus. And I'm reminded of Hebrews 11 and verse 1. Now, the substance of faith is the evidence of things not seen. And so we have that faith in the living God. And so I want to thank you this day for tuning in, and I encourage you to ask others to also listen to our broadcast. And then in closing, I would also like to mention that there's a gentleman by the name of Charles Atlas who is now deceased, but I took an exercise program from him when I was probably in my mid-teens, and he indicated that we need to take a music bath every day, and he indicated the importance of music. And so I want to encourage you to listen to Randall and Deborah on their radio station, WACQ, not only on Sundays, but throughout the week. And it will keep you uplifted and very positive and very focused on what we need to do as Christians. And so I do want to thank Deborah and Randall for all that they do. And I also want to thank you for tuning in this morning. And so till next Sunday, take care and God bless.